women affected by inclusion body myositis through virtual connections and support that transcend geography. Next, please. Our affinity group goals are: we build and create a sense of community amongst women with IBM. We network, we collaborate, we share ideas to thrive with IBM. We obtain information with professionals in the field. We find hope and joy along our journey. And we do this by creating a self and welcoming environment, privacy for sharing, vulnerability without fear of judgment, and valuing the experiences of one another. Next, please. Zoom etiquette, just please remain muted during the presentation unless called on. Thank you. So this is a disclaimer with TMA. We don't give medical advice. These are educational webinars and informative. So we encourage you to make all the decisions about your care in partnership with your healthcare team. Next. Today we have a great program. Our introduction is, we're going, talking about our IBM journey, planning for future support. Oops, this is the wrong one. Let's go next. We're good. But I can tell you what we're going to talk about. We can go back. Our agenda is to, as you've seen, welcome. And I see people in the background. Thank you for joining us. We're going to start today with giving a little recap of MyoCon for those of you who missed it. First of all, the overall MyoCon. Then we're going to give a history of the women with IBM, since we are celebrating the 5th anniversary of the Women with IBM. And this morning, we're going to talk a little bit about MyoCon. And Melissa Rumpf, who leads the Texas, did you say Northeastern Support Group, Melissa?
Yes, Nancy, the Northeast Texas.
And also was very instrumental in helping with some of the details and helping us with MyoCon. Is going to talk a little bit about the overall MyoCon program. So let me turn this over to Melissa. And Melissa, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you guys for having me. I'm Melissa Rumpf. I'm a support group leader from Northeast Texas, and I was part of the group for scheduling our MyoCon conference here in Dallas. Just a couple of things I wanted to share to begin with is that I personally believe this is one of the best conferences. They get better every year. We had a little over 500 participants at the conference here in Dallas, and a wide variety of vendors, from medical vendors, pharmacy vendors, folks that are doing IVIG for different forms of myositis, as well as even some vendors for travel with accessibility. It was really a great variety of vendors that we had this year. First, I want to recognize, and I think this was one of the our highlights, because I know Rhonda Rogers is joining us here, but Nancy Harbor and Rhonda Rogers were recognized at the Heroes Dinner with the Marianne Moyer Myositis Leader Award for their dedication to the Southern California support group. So I think that was really a highlight, and congratulations, Rhonda. I know you're here. I don't know if Nancy is on the meeting, but definitely, Rhonda, we appreciate everything you do, and you are, um, I always like to say, you are our leader of who we look up to, for us that are running other support groups and with all the stuff that you do. So thank you so much to Rhonda for that. And she was recognized, got an award, and it was a great evening at the Heroes Dinner. There were also a few speakers that we had that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. And Steve Bartlett, they had him at our introduction or welcome event on Friday night. And he was a United States congressman and also became a mayor of Dallas and was instrumental when he was in Congress for creating the ADA that we know it as today. So it was great to actually hear from him and how it all kind of got implemented. Very, very informative. And with him was Mindy Henderson. And Mindy she's with the MDA, and I think she does the outreach for the MDA on accessibility, and she did a great little presentation, and she also had a session on travel during the conference, traveling with disabilities and some of the rules that have been put into place, some of the things that she has been able to get into law, as far as what is required for travel, especially in the airline industry. She had a video, and it was very, I guess, eye opening, should I say, because she had kind of like a GoPro or someone following her and videoed her entire process at the airport. And it really, you don't even realize how difficult it is and what folks don't know, or, that are working at the airport that don't know how to deal with folks that have disabilities and needing different assistance at those different levels. So that was absolutely a great part of the conference. The conference also this year, it spent a lot of time. There was a lot of sessions on exercise, as far as physical exercise, hand exercise. And then there was our mental wellness. There was chair yoga with laughter, different things to really, I think, are instrumental in our journey with myositis and IBM, because as we all know, there's no real drug or treatment at this point for IBM. So, the exercises and just keeping positive and going, I think really are some of the things that's what we can do at this point. So those were great. And of course, I always say, and that one of my favorite things of attending all of the MyoCons are the camaraderie with the folks that have myositis, the other patients with IBM and the other patients with other forms of myositis, that we get to meet. And I met a wonderful lady in a session, and I've been keeping up with her, and we've been talking, and she has polymyositis and lives in Canada. So I think the camaraderie from these conferences is one of the top things to take away, because the support we give each other is it's really, you can't even put a word on it, a number on it. It really, to me, is the best thing. And the last thing that I will say is, because I know everybody, this is a group of IBM patients, and I know there's several of us in this group that are part of the Abcura trial. And Alex Martin, who is a CEO of Abcura, was in attendance at the conference. And I think a lot of us got to have some conversation with him, which is always great. I met him in San Diego right after I had started the trial. And, one of the things is that when I was talking to him, and that was shared, is that they're looking at the first quarter of 2026 to have some data in, and see where the
Mm-hmm.
trial is, and that if they choose to move forward with the FDA, they do have a fast track. He told me, though, the fast track is still about 6 to 9 months. So they would be looking about the beginning of 2027 that potentially the drug could be available to everyone, if it's determined that they'll be moving forward with this drug for IBM. So I truly appreciate you guys having me, and it was great seeing you all in Dallas, the ones that were here. And definitely looking forward to, if everyone doesn't know, that the 2026 conference is going to be in St. Louis at the Hyatt Regency, right at the Arch. So the hotel is going to overlook the Arch. I'm so excited. It's been years and years since I've been to St. Louis. So I look forward to, I think it's September 24th to the 27th of next year. And I look forward to seeing all of you ladies in St. Louis.
Thank you, Melissa. That was great. And I'm just gonna, I see everybody saying thank you and giving you kudos for what you said. And we do look forward to 2026 in St. Louis. For those of you who don't know, in St. Louis, Washington University has another myositis clinic headed by Dr. Chris Weil, who has been a long-time IBM researcher and has been involved with our board and the myositis, yeah, the medical advisory board for many, many years. Now I'm going to turn this over to Martha Arnold. Martha, as those of you who don't know, our group is, as I said, is celebrating our fifth anniversary. We started 5 years ago with five of us. Martha is one of our original five. So Martha, thank you, and thank you for helping today. You are on mute.
There we go.
Okay.
Just so everybody knows, I'm projecting the slides, so I don't have access to the normal types of little buttons to push on.
And
So
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
thank you. So Melissa, thank you very much for that wonderful warm up. And I think it's really important as we think about our 5-year celebration here to kind of go back to what started it all. So there was a group who got together after TMA's Minneapolis annual patient conference. So that conference was back in September 2019. Some of you may have been there. There was actually a session during that conference, which was specifically for women who had myositis. And to my knowledge, that was the first time that that sort of a session had been offered. It had been envisioned by Bitsy Anderson. Bitsy's husband was on the board, and she thought that that would be a really great program to have. Some of you, again, may know Bitsy. She's the longtime leader, recently retired, of the TMA support group in the Baltimore, Washington area. The session itself was led by Megan McCowan, who is at the Johns Hopkins Myositis Center. She's an occupational therapist by training, but she has what I would call a mental health overlay. So a real interest in mental health and myositis. And she did a super job of kind of coordinating this group, because honestly, we started off pretty awkwardly. We really weren't quite sure why we were there or what the topics were going to be. But then as people warmed up, it really became very emotional, very personal, and very educational, such that we ran well over the allotted time. I remember there were a lot of very late people showing up at lunch that day. And then it was sort of like, okay, so now what do we do? Well, in May 2020, TMA had their first virtual summit, and that was a conference. And if you'll remember, that was really at the beginning of the pandemic. And it was at an early stage in the pandemic. We really didn't know what was going to happen. You think about it, I mean, the pandemic really first got going, if you will, I think with a lot of the shutdowns in March. So here we were May in 2020. And they had a very exceptional, let me back up for a second. The platform we used that year had a really exceptional chat option. It was very friendly. It was very engaging. Everybody participated in it. And what happened at that point is Lisa Motley said, well, gee, what about if we started a chat group here that was about a group just for women with IBM? And this came at the same time that TMA was starting with the affinity groups. As was mentioned earlier, they transcend geography. And the issue here was, okay, so then what happens? And so a larger group of women were involved. And, I think we all have a little bit of our own little selective memory, but there's a bunch of names I'd like to throw out here of people who were involved early on. That included, of course, Nancy Marks Erickson, Lisa Motley, Laura Richardson, Janet McGlynn, Sharon McCall, Bitsy Anderson, Patty Meyer, and to a much lesser extent myself. I'm happy to be included in that group, but I really was not all that involved, as I recall anyway. I don't know, maybe my memory is failing me. It's only been 5 years, right? And the whole issue here, I think, was that TMA's groups had traditionally been locally focused. They had been local support groups that tended to get together in person. And this was an opportunity to really transcend that and to make it more about the experience of the disease and less about what your resources might be that might be available to you in your hometown. Well, since then, under Nancy's tutelage and with the support of Laura Richardson and Sharon McCall most recently, I think that this group has evolved into some very well-attended monthly virtual meetings. I realize we don't meet every single month, but just about every month. And it culminates in this 5-year celebration in Dallas. And so if I can get back to showing you. And so these are some pictures from there. So let me talk a little bit about this reception itself. It was on the first Friday evening of the meeting itself, so it was very early on. We had this private space, and I am afraid to use my pointer because I think it will advance the slides. But if you start up in the left-hand, the upper left-hand picture here, that is a picture of the room itself. It was an L-shaped room. It was large enough that people with various needs for mobility aids could be quite comfortable in there. The food and drink was really excellent. But I think what was really most wonderful about it was the conversation that we had. The conversations that we had, I should say, because this wasn't formal. There weren't speeches, there weren't awards given out. This was really about an opportunity to meet the people who you might have known from the previous Zoom meetings, or maybe even their activity on the various Facebook groups. And so it was really all about the one-to-one and the small group discussions, and starting to develop some additional relationships. We think there were about 45 to 50 people there. Appears that none of us really counted. But just giving you some other examples, if you look to the right, at the right-hand picture on that top row, that's Nancy together with Helena Alexanderson, who is currently a member of the Medical Advisory Board, and you may know as one of the real leaders in the area of exercise, both PT and OT, for IBM, well, for myositis in general, IBM in particular. Going all down to the lower left-hand picture, what you have there are some MAB members who joined us. And of course, that's Nancy on the left-hand side, but you'll see Namita Goyal and also Tassin Mozafar over to the right, one of the very few men who was brave enough to join us. Going into the middle, you see a picture of Laura Richardson together with Nancy, and over on the left-hand side of that picture is, of course, Paula Eichenbrenner in front of a banner talking about the 5-year anniversary and the tribute to our tenacity. And then over on the right is a picture of myself on the far right-hand side, Paula in the middle, and Terry Lockwood, who I believe is with us today on the left-hand side. And quite a few more people in the back. So you really get a feeling for the fun and the wonderful opportunity this was to kind of build some relationships. And I think this group also ran over. We were only supposed to be there, I think, for 2 hours, and I think it was much closer to 3. So I think the real value and the enjoyment came out through that. So just circling back to the beginning, what can we take of the lesson of this? Well, I think, and this I actually followed up with Lisa Motley, who's unfortunately could not be with us today, to ask her what her takeaway was, and her point was, if you have an idea, really work it, form it into a dream and pursue it. Because honestly, from that entire group that started, how many of us would have thought that we would still be meeting 5 years later as regularly as we are? So that's my 2 cents worth on the celebration of the 5 years. It was great to see everybody, and thank you very much.
And Martha, thank you. Melissa, thank you both. But the biggest thanks goes to Laura and Sharon, who worked diligently with me to do this. Initially, TMA said, "Oh, yeah, it's your 5-year anniversary," and I'm like, "Okay, fine." And it all came together at the last minute. With help. We also had help who I don't think is on the call today, from Sharon Clossie, who happened to volunteer, sent me a note and said, "I'm helping." So with Melissa and Sharon, and we are here. Thank you. It was the most heartwarming event. Martha, it was great. And these are pictures that I sent that I took. So that's why you see me. But a tribute to our tenacity, women honoring our IBM journey. That's who we are. And by the way, I think the banners are going to end up in Paula's office. At least she did mention that. So with that, let's get to the next slide. And we we are honored um, to have the voice of the professional today, Ingrid DeRue. Um, Next, Martha. A little bit about Ingrid. Ingrid has her bachelor degrees in and social work and counseling and social pedigree in the Netherlands. She was working as a social worker for Child Protection Services when she was diagnosed with myositis and ended her career. She now started and does volunteer with the Dutch Patient Organization for Neuromuscular Diseases as chair of the Dutch Myositis Group. Her interest in research brought her to Omicot, where she joined the Myositis Working Group as a patient partner in 2016. She's a board member of the International Myositis Networks, like the Dutch Myositis Networks, IMAX, MIRA, which is the International Health and Research Alliance. She is a member of the TMA Medical Advisory Board of the Myositis Association. She's a certified I can't pronounce it, patient research partner and member of the European Reference Network. She has publications in Dutch and Indian journals in rheumatology and has done numerous presentations, including one where I met her, and I believe Martha also met her at GCOM in 2024 in Pittsburgh. Her areas of interest are exercise as medicine, research and outcome measures, and life impact. and mental well-being in myositis. And I quote Ingrid in saying, "My ambition is to raise awareness on these topics and to advocate for increasing patient participation in research." So with that, we're going to change. I'm going to turn it over to Ingrid, and I'm going to, Martha, can you stop sharing your screen? And we're going to let Ingrid share hers. So, ladies, we're honored to have Ingrid. Um, Ingrid, can you put this in the very bottom in presentation mode? Do you see that little icon?
At the bottom.
It looks like a big square. If not, we'll go with this. See, yes,
Hang
it
on.
looks like a TV on a stand. I just saw it. See on the bottom, underneath your slide, underneath. Oh, here. Yes, you got it right there, right there.
Yeah, I was trying, but it's
You're what?
okay.
If it
Yeah.
does, here we go. Yes, thank you. So with that, ladies, and any questions, please put in the chat box and we will do our best to get to them. So Ingrid, thank you from the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for that introduction, and Nancy, and thank you all for inviting me. Now, I'm not gonna be rude, but I think I'm gonna shut down my video so I can't see myself because that distracts me. But I'm here. And first of all, I want to thank you for the invitation, but also to congratulate you on your 5-year anniversary with Women of IBM. So that's a real good thing you've got going there. And now I had well, here are just some things I'm doing in my spare time, and Nancy just mentioned them. So I think I'll just skip to the next slide, which is, yeah. So today is the first of 3 webinars in the series of Living with IBM, a full-time job, and we focus on how to live a meaningful or a purposeful life. So what we will do is I will start with a personal story, and then we will look at what a meaningful life is exactly. And we will look at some strategies that might be helpful, and I hopefully end up with some key messages that will be of importance to you. And then we have time for question and answers. So please hold on to your thoughts, as Nancy was saying. 2 important things to start with. This is not a scientific webinar which will present the answer to the question about meaningful life. What I do is share my personal experience and lessons learned from 20 years as a myositis patient, a research partner, and a myositis advocate, but also from my perspective as a professional with over 2 decades of work experience as a counselor and social worker in pediatric hospitals for somatic and psychiatric care, as a school counselor, and as Nancy mentioned, for child protection services. So I will start with a personal story. I will tell you a bit about myself. I was diagnosed with myositis in 2006, although it was dermatomyositis, they said, but nowadays they're not fully sure. It might be another type of myositis or even a new antibody. So I do, as far as we know now, not have IBM, but by sharing a bit of my life with myositis and where I am today, I hope I can show you that we do have things in common. And I do hope that this will empower you and all of us in today's session. So in this slide that I will keep up here for a while, you see how myositis defined my life over the years. In the top row, you see the physical decline over the years. And in the bottom row, you see the impact on daily life. I take approximately 23 tablets a day. I'm had adaptations to the house. I have all these splints and braces. Some of you might recognize them. And I have night ventilation. Well, my journey started innocent enough with inflammation of skin on the hands and in my face. And after a biopsy, lots of tests, and seeing a rheumatologist, I was diagnosed with dermatomyositis, a very rare disease, which I, of course, had never heard of. It is a systemic disease with both neurological and rheumatic features, and it may affect skin, muscles, joints, heart, and lungs. At that time, I was working full-time as a social worker for child protection services, which meant long working days when there was a family crisis on my caseload. My husband and I just bought our first house and we were renovating it. I was socially and physically active. I was doing 10-mile runs and lots of sports. At the time, I was 36 years old and I was in the bloom of my life. When my muscle strength decreased and the inflammation flared up, I started on high-dose prednisone and another immunosuppressive medication, which helped to some extent, but after a couple of years, it became harder to keep up with life. I was often overwhelmed with fatigue. My muscle strength decreased, I had shortness of breath, and I had flares almost every year, despite all the medication. Due to the high-dose immunosuppressive medication, the side effects, and the many severe infections that were a result of that, I was admitted to hospital 8 to 10 times every year in those years. I was becoming dependent on mobility aids like crutches, rollator, wheelchair. I had bad nights because of pain. I needed power naps during the day, etc. As you can imagine, it was getting harder to keep up with work, with social responsibilities and physical activity. In 2015, I was declared unfit to work, which felt like a huge loss and took some time to accept. I was 36. Oh, no, sorry, by that time I was 45. In the years before that, I had joined a patient association. And because I was also trained as a nurse, I was quite interested in the medical aspects of my disease. But being a patient and a social worker, I was of course also very interested in the psychosocial and emotional consequences of it. When I quit working, my health improved. I had not so many flares, I needed less medication, I was not in pain that much anymore, and thanks to quite a strict regimen of daily exercise, switching and creating new daily routines, including rest, etc., I did quite well. In fact, when asked, I would rate my quality of life 8 or 9, as high as it used to be before myositis entered my life. That was until the pandemic. During the pandemic, I flared badly, but there were no hospital beds available. So we struggled at home with high dosage medication and bed rest and oxygen. The pools and the physiotherapy practices closed down. It was a lockdown, remember? So instead, I did home exercise programs. It was not enough, especially not for my diaphragm. I missed the pool exercise, and my diaphragm and breathing muscles got weaker to the extent that I had to start night ventilation in the middle of the pandemic. In 2022, at the end of the pandemic, despite still wearing my face mask, I got COVID. I ended up in hospital and rehab clinic for 13 weeks. And despite 8 months of intense outpatient rehab afterwards, I never fully recovered to my former level of physical function. In 2015, exactly at around the time when I was declared unfit to work, I participated in an international workshop on myositis. And there I met the famous myositis professor, Dr. Ingrid Lundberg from Sweden. And she invited me to become a member of the OMERAC myositis group. And their research focused on the aspects of myositis which matter most to patients with regard to daily living or quality of life. This was a perfect opportunity in a very dark and difficult period of my life to satisfy my curiosity about myositis and at the same time be meaningful to society and to the patient community. From this project on, things really snowballed, and nowadays I'm involved in several national and international research jobs, patient empowerment, and all the other things that Nancy just mentioned. And it's important, I don't mention all these things to boast about them, but through this and other events, I found new meaning. Did I mourn and grieve? Yes. Was it easy? Not always, but it was definitely not always difficult either. What helped me? What helped me was love from my husband and family and friends, gratitude for what I still could do and counting my blessings, for the voluntary work to replace a professional career and other things that we will talk about today. Now back to IBM. In 2023, our Patient Association conducted a survey on quality of life in neuromuscular disease. Our Patient Association has 12,000 members, representing one of over 600 muscle diseases. We have 390 members with some type of myositis, 210 of whom have inclusion body myositis. One question from this survey I want to look at today is when we ask respondents to specify 5 difficulties or challenges they encounter in daily life as a result of IBM, and then rate these in order of importance. These are data only of the Dutch IBM patients, mind you, but by now I have learned that many of these answers correspond to data from IBM patients in other countries. You see here that with 72%, the unrivaled number 1 is reduced mobility. Runners-up, with still about half of respondents, are muscle weakness and impaired arm and/or hand function. Also close in terms of numbers are fatigue and dysphagia. When looking at dysphagia and trouble eating and drinking, that's at the bottom, we learned that although many patients experience swallowing difficulties, they not always experience problems with eating or drinking. That is because we also learned many of them either adjust their diet or use devices and aids to make things easier. Now, at first glance, these challenges appear to be all physical in nature. But when we look at them closely and read between the lines, so to speak, and you know like no one else, these have immense consequences for quality of life. What they all add up to, amongst other things, is that you are physically impaired in many daily tasks, that they take more time and more effort, potentially leading to fatigue, frustration, or even depression. It also means changing roles within relationships, husbands or lovers and children becoming carers, which is an emotional transition for all parties. It also means losing your independence slowly, avoiding situations in which you might run into trouble, like skipping a dinner out of fear you will choke, and losing the ability to do the things you love most. I think we all agree that these numbers and words in this slide cannot capture the entire spectrum of what it means to live with IBM. The title of these webinars, Living with IBM, a Full-Time Job, was chosen for a reason. And that is why we are here today. When talking to people with IBM, we conclude that quality of life is a big issue, maybe even the main issue. But despite several clinical studies being done or in the pipeline, there is still no cure. That means you have to live with your condition day in and day out and face disease progression without knowing the extent and the speed of this worsening of your condition. Like people with other chronic diseases I met over the years, many patients tell others, I have IBM, but I am not IBM. People are not their disease. Still, The focus in care for people with a specific disease is on exactly that. It's on the disease. Healthcare professionals focus on symptoms and health issues, and very importantly, how to solve or treat these. In the case of IBM, that means there is no cure. So then health professionals will try and treat to relieve the symptoms and consequences. For instance, the surgery in case of dysphagia, starting night ventilation, supply orthesis or assistive devices, etc. Now, that is definitely welcome and helpful, but it does not automatically make it easier to deal with IBM, either physically or psychologically. So, how do you cope with all this? I do not have the answer to that, but what we can do today is look at this situation from different perspectives. No, you cannot change the fact that you have IBM, but you might be able to change the way you look at IBM and the way you live your life with it, to live a meaningful life despite IBM. That is a challenge in itself, even if it's not mentioned in the survey data in so many words. But it is why we are here today, to balance realism and hope, to look for or even provide practical tools, and very important, to experience and contribute to a sense of empowerment. So, an important question to start with. What is meaningful life exactly? Well, there are numerous definitions of meaningful life, and I chose a relatively neutral one. It's from Wikipedia. According to Wikipedia, a meaningful life is a construct having to do with the purpose, significance, fulfillment, and satisfaction of life. While specific theories vary, there are two common aspects, namely a global pattern of thoughts and behavior to understand one's life, and secondly, the belief that life itself is meaningful. This belief is a very subjective concept, and that is a good thing. It means that no one but you decides what is meaningful or not. While there are benefits to making meaning out of life, there is still not one definitive way in which one can establish such a meaning. In psychological studies, those who were successful in creating a meaningful life enjoyed benefits, such as higher levels of positive emotions, life satisfaction, etc. And also, when faced with a stressful life situation, finding meaning is shown to help adjustment and coping. Keep in mind, though, that society's definition of success, happiness, and meaningfulness is no one size fits all. Everyone defines these concepts differently. Chronic illness requires redefining purpose and goals. It means redefining your life. So let's look at some strategies for building a meaningful life, or at least some suggestions to start with. Strategy 1, acceptance versus resignation. Acceptance means acknowledging the reality without giving up. It also means letting go of the old normal and creating a new possible. Meaning is not what you do, but how you live with what you have. And it's important to differentiate between what you can and cannot control. Acceptance is easier said than done. We all know that. And it's not the same as resignation. It is about integrating IBM in your overall lifestyle and try to move forward. So it is a continuous process and means changing your perspective over time. For this, you need to understand your illness. You need to know the symptoms, the triggers, and how to manage these. But it's also about being realistic, recognizing how IBM affects your abilities and life goals and adjusting them accordingly. It is helpful to differentiate between what you can and cannot control. For instance, you can control taking your medication or doing your exercises regularly. What you cannot control is the muscles becoming weaker due to the IBM. Acceptance increases life satisfaction. Studies show a strong correlation between illness and life satisfaction. And acceptance reduces negative emotions and improves emotional well-being. One thing I like to mention here, and I often refer to this in sessions with patients and healthcare professionals, is the so-called disability paradox. Maybe people here have heard about it, but for those who haven't, the disability paradox is the unexpected finding of researchers that people with significant disabilities often report a good or even excellent quality of life, despite the widespread belief among non-disabled people and even some healthcare professionals that their lives must be difficult and or unhappy. This discrepancy arises from misconceptions about disability, cognitive biases like predicting feelings incorrectly, and the tendency to overlook the significant impact of social support, personal resilience, and environmental factors on well-being. And exactly those are the factors that can lead to a meaningful life. And it's very good to keep this in mind. The next strategy I want to talk about is find daily meaning. And here in the photo, you see a question I often ask people. What is your why? What is your why to get up in the morning or to put a smile on your face? This can be found in small things, things you might even have considered insignificant earlier in life. Small joys like music or nature, pets, hobbies, art, religion. Take time to appreciate the beauty in simple things like smelling fresh coffee in the morning or watch a flower in bloom. But also acts of kindness, helping others in small ways. Those can be easily done even when you're in a wheelchair. Call a friend who is having a hard time or send a nice text to someone. Another thing that might be helpful is keeping a journal or practice gratitude or spiritual reflection. Practicing gratitude always has been one of my favorites, even as a young girl. At the start and end of every day, I count my blessings, as my mom used to call it. It is an effective exercise to focus on the things you are grateful for and shift your focus to the positive things in your life. This exercise helped a lot of the children I met as a counselor through very difficult and challenging times. When you're feeling down, this might sound like a silly exercise or even a trick, but we know from studies that people can learn how to do this even when skeptical and feel better for it. We know that a health crisis can be a powerful catalyst for self-reflection, prompting your focus on the relationship and things that are most important to you. In other words, to prioritize what matters. For some, sickness can lead to a deeper sense of faith or a feeling of having a higher purpose. It can be a time for introspection and dedicating your life to something greater. The next strategy, number 3, it's about connection and community. And that's one that will people, some of you, well, most of you here will recognize that because that's one of the reasons you joined this group in the first place. It's the power of being understood. Seek out support groups or trusted relationships, could be either online or face-to-face. Advocate or educate, or basically turning pain into purpose. Try to maintain relationship and friendships by connecting proactively. Some people say, well, since I got ill, I lost all my friends. But sometimes that's partly all of their own doing as well. Because if you connect proactively and ask how someone else is doing and share how you are, then then you don't have to lose friends. But be careful not to make that the dominating topic in the relationship. And that is a pitfall for some people. Being there for others takes your mind off your own struggles and feels rewarding. Communicate your needs, what you can or cannot do, what kind of support you need from them, And you might find that people even like to help you, which give them a sense of purpose as well. Connecting with others, engaging with support programs, and listening to other stories not only remind you that you are not alone, it also provides new and helpful insights. And you can help others by sharing your experiences like we are doing today, which in turn might add to your feelings of meaningfulness. Another topic and a strategy, number 4, energy and pacing. When tired, we often experience lower mood and worse physical function than when rested. In that sense, energy levels are interesting to take into account when talking about living a meaningful life. Some tips that might help you are budget your energy. And by this I mean don't rush. Don't forget that slow and regular rhythm uses less energy. Develop new routines or break down tasks in smaller steps. What might help also is to say yes selectively without feeling guilty, and or learn to say no. You probably all experience that nagging something's gotta give feeling when doing too much on a bad day or ignoring the small voice warning you to take a break. Try and take that small voice seriously. What is helpful also is to alternate activities and types of activities, switch between different types of tasks, for instance, physical, emotional, or cognitive. And that way you make sure you are not straining or even draining the same energy systems repeatedly. Also important, and that's a challenge for some, is to value rest as part of purposeful living instead of seeing it as a limitation or a hindrance. So this all in short means don't rush, even if you are the type of person who finds it hard to slow down. A slow and regular rhythm uses less energy. And developing new routines, it's one of my favorite strategies because I really learned that these routines not only save but also generate energy because my body and mind are familiar with them. Strategy number 5, setting micro goals. Find out what lights you up, what brings you joy or energy, and small projects matter. Micro goals increase chances of success and accomplishments, which in turn means a boost for sense of meaning and self-esteem. Remember, micro goals are small steps to big wins, and this comes from some talks that you hear by CEOs of big commercial companies, but it's true here as well. If you think about it, and it's also in the picture here, it's one brick. You start with one brick to build a house. So to set micro goals with a chronic illness, it is important to first identify your larger objective and then break it down into the smallest, most manageable steps possible. Focus on what you can achieve on a given day, making your goals flexible and adaptable for bad days. And be sure to celebrate each small victory along the way to stay motivated and to stay kind to yourself. Define what is your why. Why is this goal important to you? If it is to stay active, then start by taking a stroll every hour. Could be indoors with your rollator just around the living room. It doesn't matter. And then celebrate or give yourself a compliment. Realize that you may have good and bad days, so have a backup plan with goals that fit how you feel. So on a bad day, your goal could be to finish reading a book or calling a friend. Small tasks that are satisfying. Review and adjust your goals periodically to check if they're still realistic. If not, adjust according to what you can or cannot do at that point in time. And also very important here, do not beat yourself up over setbacks. Remember, you had bad days before the IBM too, remember? It is part of life. Treat challenging days as learning opportunities and remember that you are choosing these things for yourself and for a reason. An important one and one close to my heart is that many the emotional and mental health tools It's a topic many people relate to when talking about meaningful life. Here are some examples: mindfulness and breathing exercises. It will help to ground yourself. Therapy, for instance, cognitive behavioral therapy and ACT or acceptance and commitment therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy, for those who not know, it works by helping you identify, challenge, and change negative thought patterns and behaviors that contribute to current problems, based in the idea that thoughts, feelings, and actions are interconnected. ACT or acceptance and commitment therapy. Here, clients will learn to stop avoiding, denying, and struggling with their inner emotions, and instead accept that these deeper feelings are appropriate responses to certain situations that should not prevent them from moving forward in their lives. With this understanding, clients begin to accept their hardships, like an illness, and commit to making necessary changes in their behavior, regardless of what is going on in their lives and how they feel about it. Another tool that could be helpful is to keep a journal to explore purpose or identity and emotions. And it's good to remember that resilience is not about being strong all the time. That is such a misconception. It's about bouncing back in your own way and in your own time. We will have a closer look at the psychological challenges with living with myositis. And we can do that here. In 2024, the Psychological Impact Working Group of MIRA published a review in the scientific journal Clinical and Experimental Rheumatology. And what we did is we reviewed the current state of affairs regarding the emotional and psychological challenges for adults and children living with myositis. Publications of studies are limited, but we looked at them critically. We identified psychological interventions and their results, knowledge gaps, and unmet needs. And there is absolute evidence that cognitive and behavior therapy and the acceptance and commitment therapies we talked about are successful interventions for people with both IBM and other types of myositis. In the figure below, the circle with the arrows, that shows all the mental health aspects or challenges that we found in myositis. So they are with regard to all types of myositis. So if you look at them, you might recognize some of them and you might not, some of them you might not. So depending on your type of myositis, some are more relevant than others. And another table on the right is an important one. Here you see potential methods or interventions to address all these issues. We already talked about some of these, and when you see an asterisk, it means that we found evidence in the literature that these are successful interventions, like the ACT and the CBT we just talked about. One last strategy, and that's mostly because there's a time limit of how much we can talk about today, it's positive health. Positive health is a method or a framework developed in the Netherlands, and it looks at health from another angle, with a focus not on disease, but on the person living with it, their resilience, and on what makes their life a meaningful life. So positive health is a broader view of health, so to speak. And this broader approach contributes to people's ability to deal with physical, emotional, and social challenges in life, and to be in charge of their own affairs, if possible, despite whatever. The challenge when being confronted every day with the physical limitations of IBM is to look beyond all that. That is where this framework could be really helpful. The broad interpretation of health is elaborated in 6 dimensions, and you see them all with different colors. And they have emerged from research into what people themselves perceive health to be. They appear not only to consider physical health important, but also, for example, sense of purpose or participation and quality of life. All these things that add to a meaningful life. The spider web, I just it's just so you know what we're talking about. I always describe it as spiderweb describes these 6 dimensions and associated aspects. And with this spiderweb, people can outline their own health. It's also an instrument that can be used as a prelude to a conversation about health and well-being. However, what it is not, it's not about having a positive view on health. It's about considering a broader perspective. And it's not a definition, it's characterization of philosophy, so to say. And it's not a measurement tool either, and not a research tool. But what we can do now, and we don't have the time to go into it and go through the whole positive health framework, but what we can do is look at the dimension you just saw there with all the colors. There are several ways to use this fiber web in interventions by health professional and patients, but I think it's also helpful in a simpler way, namely by looking at all these dimensions and aspects and ask yourself where there is room for growth or a need for help. You will find that there are areas in which you would like to feel or do better, but I am pretty sure that you will also learn that you are doing pretty well in areas you may never have considered as meaningful or important before. And that in itself could be a valuable and rewarding experience. Now, I will give you a few minutes to read and then go to the next 3 dimensions before we go to the take-home messages and end this presentation. So have a look or even take a photo if you wish. And ask yourself, I'm pretty good on diet and nutrition, exercise. Well, I cannot do all the things I want, but the things that I can do, I do them pretty good, and I'm very loyal to my exercise program. Oh, wow, my recollection is good, and I can deal with change. Just see how you're doing. Now we have come to the end of my presentation and my time to present, so I will show some take-home messages and I hope they will be helpful to you. So illness may change your path, but definitely not your worth. And focus on mindset. You cannot change the fact that you have IBM, but you can change the response to it. In other words, you can change the way you look at IBM and the way you live your life with it. Today, we looked at several strategies to make your life more meaningful. Acceptance. It means acknowledging reality without giving up. And meaningful means finding out what is the why to get up in the morning or to put a smile on your face. We talked about staying connected, about how to pace yourself and practice gratitude. Ask for help when needed. This could be either from loved ones or a professional. It doesn't matter as long as you reach out. And last one, use the strategies we discussed and find what works for you to live a more meaningful life. What I want to say, and then I really give it back to Nancy, is looking at life from different perspectives or angles in sickness can involve shifting your focus to what you can control, like your mindset, rather than what you can't. This can lead to new insights and a greater sense of peace by reframing challenges as opportunities for growth, finding meaning through faith, or simply appreciating the moment. Other approaches include focusing on the relationships and aspects of life that are most important to you and seeking support from community programs or learning from others' experiences like we are doing today. And with that, I want to give it back to Nancy.
Ingrid, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think that um, I don't know what to say. Um, I need to, everything you said really hits home with me, and I'm sure the majority of other people that are on this call. I just quickly want to say, yes, this is recorded and this will be on the YouTube channel. But as we start this series, Living with IBM, a full-time job, there's so much that we as IBM patients share and need to share amongst ourselves and learn about. And I feel like what you and everything you said today was incredible. It sounds like something's very easy to do, but we just start with, as you're saying, the small steps, the micro spaces, and then they just get bigger and bigger. And as we're living a happy life, we're taking care of ourselves, and we are um, taking care of ourselves and staying happy, and more importantly, pacing ourselves. Um, do you have any closing? And someone, Terry, thank you. Yes, self-care. Do you, or I'm going to open this up, which we normally don't do, but we've got about 10 or 15 minutes. If anyone has a question or comment, do you want to raise your hand?
Or share an example that helped you. So
Right.
please share that as well, because that definitely will help others as well.
Thank you. Okay, ladies, come on. Let's see where we are. Who wants to talk first? I have a quiet group of women today.
They might be still chewing on what I said.
Kathy, you want to talk? I'm going to unmute you.
I unmuted me.
Yes, ma'am.
I found that the topics covered were almost overwhelming in some places. And I don't have problems asking for help when I need it when I'm out. And I'm very grateful for the people who spontaneously help me. But I'm finding I'm isolated too much. I don't know how to deal with isolation.
Okay. Okay. It's a good point, and can I ask a big favor? Send us a note with that, and that's something I think that we need to address at one of our future programs. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
I think that would be a great idea to go over. And it's women with IBM at myositis.org. And Jane, I know you're trying to talk. Sharon McCall, I know we unmuted. I can't unmute. Oh, come on. Let's see. Now you're good. Okay.
All right. I hit the unmute. Why I'm having trouble with that. Excuse my voice. I was isolated Fortunately, my husband and I, from a 55 and older community, moved into a continuum care community. So we're here until the good Lord wants us. And one of my mottos from day one, instead of feeling sorry for myself and making life miserable for my family, I would enjoy my life and put my trust in my Lord and Savior because it's totally out of my control. And now that we live at this continuum care, we have healthcare centers. And I was doing it before I became a peer member with our health committee, but I absolutely love going down and visiting people, especially people, they might be in for rehab and their families are not close by, their husband's too old and can't drive. So I always keep an eye on those people, and I get, I think, more joy out of the visits than they get from seeing me. But, and I also, believe it or not, with these hands that don't do much, I'm still able, one of my joys is making cards. How I'm doing it, I don't know, but I still fight it to enjoy it, to do it as long as I can. And I
That's
think
great.
being positive is very important.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank
It
you.
is.
Okay,
Yeah.
Connie Brown, can you unmute yourself? You have to unmute yourself, Connie.
Yeah,
There you are.
I just was going to say about isolation. I feel the same way. I've had to give up driving, and I had a really bad fall, so I'm in a wheelchair. And what I have done is invite people to my house. I have had to, realize that my standards are way lower than they used to be, and you have to realize that the people that care about you are coming for the fellowship, and that has made a big difference to me. My friends are expected. I have one group of friends that we just get together every 2 weeks. And so I just was going to suggest that as a way to deal with isolation because it is hard. Although I don't mind being at home, at least I'm not a person who has to be out all the time. But that was all.
Great. And I know there's another hand up somewhere, but I can't. Oh, here. Connie, great. Please, your turn. Can you it's your turn to talk. Yes. Please unmute yourself.
I don't know how how do I take away
Oh,
my hand?
Connie, you're fine. I'll take away that you're fine.
Okay.
Preeti, do you want to talk? There you are. Thank you.
Sure. I just wanted to say thank you for a great presentation. And my question was about exercise as medicine. I see that Ingrid has in her areas of interest and expertise as exercise as medicine, and I wondered if she could talk a little bit more about how what does that mean exactly? Because I really believe in exercise, and I have been exercising, but I also find that when it also leads to pain. So my question is more about how to balance it.
Yeah. And I understand that question. The thing is, I'm not a physical therapist because what I would suggest is that you invite, and I'm pretty sure my friend Helene Alexandersson, the physiotherapist from Sweden, who is a myositis exercise expert, she's the one to talk to you about this. It's my area's expertise. It's more because I'm not a PT. I'm a consumer like you are, so I feel that exercise is good for my body. I struggle with the same things when be sure not to do too much or overdo it. But if you do not do enough, there's no growth. That's a struggle all patients. And with the physical exercise group, we are looking into for different types of myositis. What would be the best myositis, the best exercise program? And we're about to do some publications on that. But the problem is you need to show evidence, you need to do large studies. And the studies need to be, if you want to have huge groups of patients in that study, you need either big countries, like you're a big country, America, but like in the Netherlands would be really hard. So it's normally more European multi-center. But
And,
there is,
and
and there is evidence, and I will keep it short. Sorry, Nancy. There is evidence now, and there was very recently, and I heard it in Sweden last month when I was there for a presentation during a rheumatology conference. That there is actually evidence that IBM is delaying progression in IBM. That there is an exercise program that was developed in Sweden, but I'm not a person. I would be lying if I told you what it was about. So I think it might be interesting for Nancy and the organizers to look into that.
well, I'm just going to
Thank you.
say, Ingrid, to all of you, to piggyback on what Ingrid said, what you're going to see in the next few slides is when we met and spoke to Ingrid's friend, Dr. Alexanderson at MyoCon. We have already talked about a program, and she has agreed to come to one of our programs and talk. So we are in the process of talking to her. It's probably going to be in the next quarter of 2026. But she has agreed, and we will talk about it on a Tuesday. So if those of you just keep looking, and as soon as we have a date and we have a more substantial topic with her, but she is going to do a program similar to what Ingrid did. So I am extremely excited about that. Do we have any other hands or questions that I'm missing? Laura, are you raising your hand? Laura Richardson, who's my big help today with everybody else.
I think one of the things is when we have these discussions is people want to know what resources there are for us, both with exercise, with the mental health aspect. And that's what we are trying to do with our programming here, is to bring into these aspects of self-care through all these types of beneficial exercises, mental exercises, physical exercises. And I just want to reinforce all that. And to find the resources, you can always check on TMA to see if they have resources. Please check with your physicians. Talk with them about having physical therapy and occupational therapy. Not all of them just automatically have it as part of their programs in the myositis community. So advocate for yourself, vocalize, what can I do to do more to help?
Great,
Thank you.
thank you. Bobby, do you want to unmute
I'm
yourself?
muting. So I posted something in the chat for everybody, but you had talked earlier about being in isolation, and myself and my husband are tutors for the AARP Experience Core program. And so you can do this virtually from your home, because we started ours during COVID, so everybody was at home. And AARP had previously done their program so that you had to be in person to do the tutoring. But you may not know this, but the third graders in our country are in trouble. They do not read. Part of it is they didn't teach phonics, and part of it is COVID. But there's a great, huge need for people to be tutoring third graders. And you can do it all virtually. My program, I'm in Arizona right now, but my program uses virtual tutors. We have one person who's in Baltimore, one person who's in Chicago, and we hook them up on virtually into the special classroom where the kids come for the tutoring. And it's an hour a day, 2 times a week. Kids are adorable. And if it's something that you could do from wherever you are. You have to go through training, but there's lots of information about it on AARP, and anybody who wants more specific information can text me, and I'll go back in and or not text me, but email me. I'll go back in and post my email. But you can go to the AAP website and look for Experience Corps, and you could be, because one of the things we talked about today was having purpose and volunteering, doing other things in the community. And that's something that you could do. You could probably do it maybe in your local community. And we have people who do it in Arizona who live in Casa Grande, where I am, and who are virtual as they don't drive. So
Great.
look that.
Thank you. Martha. Martha, you're muted.
Yeah,
Martha
no
Arnold.
problem. So I'm just here to let you know that Linda Hackfield has had her name up. Has had
Oh,
her
I
hand.
didn't see it. Well, Linda, it's your turn.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Nancy. I want to just thank Ingrid for a lovely presentation with lots of great information in it. That's very helpful. Did I understand correctly? This is one of three sessions?
It's 3 or 4 sessions, Linda. I have 2 or 3 other things that we are working on. But
Okay.
yes, it's going to be, and I'm gonna share with you, actually, if Martha Arnold can turn back on the slides and we can just kind of skip to the end. I'll go over what we have with our question and answers, and we can just keep going to the next one. Yeah, let's go to that one. What we're doing, Linda, is our next program is November 18th of 2025. We're working on what the speaker is, but I'm going to continue the series. And 3 of the things that we have that are going to be part of this, Helene, Dr. Alexanderson, as I said, has agreed to do a program on exercises for IBM. Dr. Namita Goyal and Sir Billy Shah have agreed to also do a program on the quality of life and fatigue. Fatigue is something that you saw as part of what Ingrid talked about. And so we're going to be looking at these things from a medical standpoint a little bit more than our mental standpoint. Both Dr. Goyle and Dr. Bilishar, I can't pronounce her last name, are neurologists. They are research neurologists, also clinical, who are brilliant MDs practicing and dealing with a tremendous amount of IBM patients. So we're still framing a little bit more of those. One of the other programs that we're going to be working on under this, as part of it, that a lot of us have had or are still having problems with, is swallowing. So there will be a swallowing symposium coming up in the next several months also, talking about what you're doing, how you're doing it, what you can do, people to see, and we've got a lot of very good information. So any other questions or thoughts, please send us an email at womenwithibm@myositis.org. Please let us know if you'd like to help with any of the upcoming programs, or we could use a little bit of help with some of our newsletters, which we're behind on. So just send us an email and we were happy to reach out to you. We're happy that you're here. And without you, we couldn't be doing this and learning from each other. So I'm going to say, Ingrid, thank you. Thank you for our help today and our other contributors, Martha and Melissa. Thank you, Sharon McCall. Thank you, Laura Richardson. Thank you, Rhonda Rogers. Thank you, everybody who helped with MyoCon. But the most important help is we're getting all the help from each other. So with that, I'm going to log off and say